Kashmir Files, which has had a record-breaking run in India. The movie has been received and has got a warm welcome from people across the country, but there is an agenda. It looks like against the film. There are many who are now calling the film quote-unquote Islamophobic. A huge debate has surrounded the film. In New Zealand, we had seen how the censor board had earlier passed the film, allowing 16 plus to view the film, but now the same censor board of New Zealand has started questioning the film. There is a review of the film. Remember, the review has happened because the member of the minority community had reached New Zealand censor board. They had written to the censor board and they had claimed that the movie was against Islam, was showing Muslims in bad light. The former Deputy Prime Minister of New Zealand has spoken out about the controversy. He has claimed that trying to censor the movie in any way is against the freedom of speech and is actually in a way like eroding history. Other than New Zealand, in Germany, the film has released as well. It has received warm accolades. It has been very well received by the people of Germany. The film seems to be doing rather well in India. The box office collections are pretty robust. It is crossed, if I'm correct, it has crossed the records of the super hit film Dangal as well. But despite of the film doing very well, which is a clear testament of the fact on how people want to watch the film, they want to understand the history of Kashmiri Pandit, it seems very clear that there is a section which is not pleased with the movie. They feel that the movie is Islamophobic. It shows the people of a certain community, according to these people, in a bad light. The question which we are raising today is truth-telling Islamophobia. Should we stop telling the truth? Should we now refrain from talking about the genocide which happened to Kashmiri Pandits simply out of the fear of antagonizing a few? If we can have a film like Schindler's List, which talks about the plight of the Jews, why are we so reluctant to talk about the plight of our Kashmiri Pandits? To discuss all of this in detail, I'd like to welcome a panel of experts, starting with Gautam Mukherjee, senior journalist. We also have Sakshi A. Mattu. She is a Kashmiri Pandit. Also joining us is Major Retired Mohammad Ali Shah. He's a defense expert. Also with us is Major General Retired Sudhakar Ji. He is also a defense expert. M.K. Raghavendra A. He is a film critic, has also joined us on the broadcast. I'm going to start first of all with M.K. Raghavendra, because you're a film critic. Raghavendra, we have so many movies abroad, say like the Schindler's List. It talks about the Holocaust. What is so wrong if a movie is made in India which talks about the plight of the Kashmiri Pandits? Yes, the politicians may debate today. The politicians may claim that the blame has not been equitably distributed. But at the same time, to show what had happened to one community, to take out a chapter, a dark chapter from our history and present it to the public in a cinematic form, how is it Islamophobic? Raghavendra, can you please unmute yourself?
Okay. Okay, I've not seen the film, but let me first begin by saying there's nothing wrong, actually. It's completely, legitimate subject matter to show this movie on the massacre of the Kashmiri Pandits. But the issue is how the film has been made, how it shows it, okay? It's very important, because what happens is it's not that easy. I mean, one of the things about Schindler's List is the Jewish question today. There's a consensus on what the Jewish question is, right? Everybody's agreed on what the Jewish question is, right? It's not a controversial subject anymore. The World War, the conclusive, yeah. So the question is how you make the film now, considering that this is still a contentious subject in the sense of how you represent Hindus and Muslims. It's not so much that the massacre of Hindus has happened, which is, nobody questions that very much, but the point is how it is represented. Are there any prejudicial things in the film? That would matter quite a lot. You can certainly show it, there's nothing wrong in showing it, but it would depend on how the movie is dealing with it. That is the question. Is it propaganda, or is it political propaganda, contentious political propaganda, political propaganda from viewpoint, or not? It would matter. That would matter quite a bit.
Okay. Sakshi Mattu, would you like to take this thought forward? When it comes to what happened to the Jews, we have a film critic who says that's not debatable. But when it comes to Kashmiri Pandits, how do we put a question mark there? Is this film propaganda? First of all, what are your views? Many, of course, today claim that the fact that the film showed the plight of Kashmiri Pandit, that itself is a reason for controversy. But why should that be so? End of the day, it's really a genuine portrayal of what had happened in the 1990s in the valley.
Yes, absolutely. To every individual out there who still thinks that this film is a propaganda, let me please tell you, it is not propaganda. It is a very well-researched film. 700 Kashmiri Pandit families have been interviewed across the globe. And I don't know how many of you have seen the film, but let me assure you, the scene wherein you see the Pandits, bundled in the truck, and they are bundled in the truck and fleeing the valley. I am one of those genocide survivors who was bundled in the truck along with my family, and that is how we had to flee. That is how we had to flee. And my mother's paternal grandmother, who was 90 plus years old, suddenly, when my mother told her that, we have to leave, she first cried and she was like, no, since I'm born here, I would like to die here. But somehow we pacified her and we bundled her in the truck. And second of all, it was, it started snowing on the way. And we had nothing. We just had a bag. I don't even remember what was there. Perhaps some documents or something important. We had nothing to even warm herself. We didn't even have blankets. On the way, somewhere we stopped and we requested the security personnel to, give us some coals from for the kangdi from the Kashmiri bakery that was, on the way. And my dad, as we would call her, she was 90 plus. She started crying and she was shivering and, she was, beating her chest. And my mother told her clearly one thing. She clearly told her that if you want to survive, please keep quiet. Otherwise, it's not just you. You will get us all killed.
Yeah.
So that is the plight. So this is for all those people who still after, sadly that we have to, we have told them that, it's a well-researched film with over 700
yes,
activities.
I take your, yes.
So it's again very sad that, we have to time and again prove and we have to tell them, no, this is our story. It's not a propaganda. It's a very cinematically very well-made film.
Gautam Mukherjee, we're not sitting here to sing a eulogy to the film or to say that give an Academy Award to the film. The film may have its flaws, but to the limited point of the genocide, just speaking about it, the film does mention and clearly talks about the ethnic cleansing of Hindus which happened. That is an undeniable fact. Why do we shy away from accepting that, and how does portraying what had happened to one community become Islamophobic? That seems to be mind-boggling, to say the least.
Well, it's obvious that they are feeling guilty. You mentioned Schindler's List. Now, let us understand that the director has made, at that point, a number of films and never won an Oscar. Then he decided to choose a Jewish subject, himself being a Jew, and realizing that the entire Oscar committee, the movie industry as such in America is dominated by Jews. And hey presto, plenty of Oscar awards, no problem. So at last, he becomes an accepted mainstream. He had his own studio on the outside. He was never invited by the main, the establishment studios, even though he'd made a number of extremely entertaining and well received films. Now here we have not only a film on a shameful aspect of the 90s, which has been whitewashed, suppressed, propagandized in the other direction. But now that it has been made, it is accepted by the public without the help of the usual Bollywood, publicity machine. And it has also been recognized by the Prime Minister of the country and various BJP state chiefs which has also agitated the people who oppose it.
Yeah.
However, I think it has served an excellent purpose in India, where the minorities have made a profession out of playing victim, out of blaming the present government for being communal and anti-Muslim. Well, this is what they did when they had half a chance. And this cannot be denied. And this is not the first massacre. There are many massacres that have occurred in the 75 years that we have been independent, some conducted by the communists, some riots between the Hindus and Muslims.
And why not?
I come from Bengal.
Make movies on those riots.
I come from Bengal, and if you look at it, if you look at what happened in Noakhali and so forth at 1947, this is a children's tea party in comparison. However, there we are. One has reached the public, and there's already all this moaning and groaning. Now, as far as it going abroad, it will serve a limited purpose. The Indian diaspora will like it, at least aspects of them.
Okay.
The others will be largely, not interested, or perhaps interested in it only in a cinematic way. But the main purpose is in India, and it has served a very worthwhile
served the purpose. And it's reignited the debate around Kashmiri Pandits. There's no denying that. But end of the day, Major General Sudhakarji, you could come in here as well. Cinema is a reflection of our life. It holds a mirror to the society, and this film simply shows what had happened in the 1990s to the Kashmiri Pandits. Very interesting to see what's happening in New Zealand. You are a man of the warfare, a defense expert, sir. There is one conventional warfare, and there is second soft part, soft diplomacy and soft pressurization. Do you see all of these at play in New Zealand? Censor board allows a film, and then comes the member of certain communities who start opposing the film, and suddenly the same censor board, which says 16 plus can watch the film, start to review it, and they start to have a rethink on the entire ideology of the film. Do you not find that suspicious at all, sir?
Unmute, please.
Unmute yourself, sir, please.
Okay.
Okay, I'll come. All right, please go ahead, sir, quickly.
I've got your question, don't worry. I've got the sense of it, Meenakshi. Firstly, good evening to you, and thank the channel to have invited me. I'm very grateful to you. And secondly, my good wishes to the co-panelists. I've heard them. To put things in perspective, if you allow me, unfortunately, the channels don't give time.
So we have a limited time. I have just 20 minutes left for the debate.
Very quick points.
Please go ahead, sir.
Before I respond in specific to your question. First and foremost thing is post-Cold War, post-Second World War, the phase of Cold War and thereafter end of Cold War, and now the phase is going on, there is a retreat of democracy. These are my points. If you permit, later I'll explain.
Okay.
The non-democratic forces are expanding their periphery or spheres of influence. Okay, so you extend your imagination, apply, you will get the right meaning. So putting this in the background, let's try and understand this film which has been made. To me, as I look at the whole issue, it's a creative medium. It's a creative medium, a kind of a realistic picture, because I myself, I have had 5 tenures. Out of 38 long years of service, I had 5 service tenures in Jammu and Kashmir.
All right.
I mean to say, without the status of the Union territories. So I have seen the better part of what was happening in the valley. I have been an eyewitness to many of these occurrences. The only issue which comes up for debate, because I have been checked by my colleagues in the Twitter, when I use the term genocide, when I checked up in the Wikipedia, well, the interpretation which I had in my mind was actually standing fully formidable and reinforced. So genocide, whether it is small in number or bigger in number, it's a group of people who are being subjected to ethnic cleansing.
Yes.
I have seen these people being cleansed overnight in different operations in broad daylight at gunpoint, not 1, not 2, not 3, 32 of them in broad daylight. I, as a military man, I used to plan operations to, nab these terrorists. We nabbed them, we neutralized them. That's how the situation has come down, and we're able to implement Article 370. Goes without saying that there is not a mystery behind all this drama which is going on. There is definitely a kind of information warfare against this particular picture, against the country, the nation, so proudly we call ourselves as India. They do not want to see India grow as an emerging or as a big power either in the regional level or at the global level. Back to you, please.
Well, point taken, sir. There is no doubt that there is an information warfare against the film. Major Mohammed Shah, if you could come in here, and I want to broad base it, go beyond the film, because I'm not a spokesperson for the film. We're not here to endorse a film. Like it, love it, hate it. It is, of course, the discretion of the viewers. The problem becomes when you start to censor it. Why should someone in New Zealand think of censoring the movie after passing it? Do you not see, as Major General Sudhakarji also said, an information warfare against the film, a very concerted effort to try and hide the truth of what had happened in India simply because it puts some people in bad light?
Meenakshi, very good question. And before your question, I would say I haven't seen this film as yet. But most certainly, I can say very easily, I can say that the pain of the Kashmiri Pandits is our own. It's of every single Indian. And it is something which is not supported by anyone. It should, in fact, they should be ways and means of measures of getting them rehabilitated back to their hometowns, back to their homes, and not just talk about it. Yes, one should talk about it, but it is something which and it would be wrong to say that Muslims did that. Muslims didn't do that. It was the terrorists who did that, and terror has no religion. And those terrorists also killed Muslims who are nationalists, who are patriotic, who loved India. So it would, and I have a lot of my best friends are all Kashmiri Pandits, in fact, many of them. When they tell me when this happened, when the genocide happened, the people who saved them also, incidentally, were also Muslims. And it would be wrong to actually paint one community by the same brush. Now, coming back to your question, Meenakshi, I think, yes, once the censor board has passed something, thereafter it will be wrong. It only gives rise to further suspicion and further hush-hush that what went wrong, why has it been censored now? And that really sends a wrong message across. So now when we talk about the pain of Kashmiri Pandits, yes, most certainly, yes.
But Major Shah, I mean, your voice is echoing a bit, so I missed some points here. Are you suggesting that what happened in 90s was not done by indigenous people of the valley at all? It was some terrorists who came from outside of the border. They may have instigated the Muslim population living there.
No, I'm not saying that. You haven't understood me. That means I said terror has no religion. I didn't say they came outside. It wasn't done by Muslims, because Muslims do not endorse it. They do not encourage it. They do not. I for a Muslim, for that matter, I can say that I rebuke it completely, and I really, my blood boils to see that such kind of people, such inhuman, insane people, actually barbaric people, came there and did such a genocide. It is really, and so I do not call them Muslims from my community. No, I am a very proud Muslim, and I am a very proud Indian, and I am an Indian before I am a Muslim, most certainly. So I am not suggesting that those people came from outside. Those people were very much there, but they were so barbaric that they have no right to call themselves a Muslim, and it is because of these kind of barbaric people that the entire community gets a bad name. The reason, I'll just quickly conclude in 10 seconds, the reason for Islamophobia is organizations like ISIS, Taliban, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Toiba. These are the fringe elements who give a bad name to Islam, who do not even know the meaning, the technical meaning of jihad, which actually means struggle. And they have spoiled the name of a beautiful religion, Meenakshi.
Point taken, sir. M.K. Raghavendra, at the onset of the discussion, you had said that we need to assess whether the film is spreading a propaganda or not. There is certainly a debate, as I had said earlier as well, on the placing of the responsibility. There are question marks. The film does not mention the VP Singh government, whether it was Farooq Abdullah on whom the blame should be laid at, or whether it was the Rajiv Gandhi government, which really didn't do much to safeguard the Kashmiri Pandits for years altogether, or perhaps even the questionable role of the governor of that time, Jagmohan. All of that aside, the limited point of genocide that did happen, right? You spoke of Schindler's List. Schindler's List spoke about the Holocaust, what had happened to the Jews. Why is it so wrong? Why is it so suddenly Islamophobic if someone shows the plight of the Kashmiri Pandits? End of the day, it was ethnic cleansing. End of the day, there were those announcements made all over Kashmir where they were told to convert, die or leave. What's wrong if someone shows the truth? How is it Islamophobic?
It cannot be called Islamophobic purely on the basis of the subject, because everybody knows it's a
Or
truth,
how is it
right?
even, on just this limited point of the genocide, how is it plain propaganda?
No, I'm not saying this. The film is necessarily propaganda, but before you can decide on the effect of the film, what effect it's going to have, you've got to look at it and see if it works as propaganda. Incidentally, I'll also say this. It sounds a little thing. So is Schindler's List propaganda. Okay. But the point is, it is propaganda for a cause which has been widely accepted as a good cause, right? Okay. Now, there is no controversy about the Jewish cause. Okay, everybody, the Jewish cause is generally held up in every way. But Schindler's List is a propaganda film, but it's a propaganda film against which you will find very few people were talking, right? It's a cause. With
So
very
what's
few
the
people.
controversy around Kashmiri Pandits genocide? It did happen. Who's questioning it?
No, it could be possible. I don't know. I mean, whether it comes from the fact that the film is about the massacre of the Kashmiri Pandits or the way in which the film is representing it, could be either. For example, Major Shah said this thing, of if, for example, you show that that this issue is not Muslim Islamic at all. Okay. See, for example, there would be terrorists. The terrorists are not necessarily from outside India. They would be local as well as outside, but it has very little to do with religion. Okay, supposing you show, for example, Muslims coming to the aid of Hindus, saving them, good Muslims, trying to save Hindus from being massacred, that would work against any propaganda element, right? Religious propaganda element. But the question is, if the film does this sort of thing, it's very easy to avoid the propaganda tag. But whether the film actually does it or not is a different issue, is what I'm saying.
Okay, Sakshi, Mattu, you could come in here. If a film does show that a certain community was persecuted, which is of course the Kashmiri Hindu Pandits in this question here, by the majority community of Kashmir at that time, which was the Muslim community, how is it questionable as a Kashmiri Pandit when you're hearing these sides of the arguments? What would you like to say today?
I said earlier as well, it's again, it's very tormentous to hear that, it's propaganda. It's not propaganda. Let us first understand what is propaganda. Propaganda is done to spread, with an agenda. There is no agenda in this film. This film is, like I said, it's very well researched film. Over 700 victims of genocide, survivors of genocide have, given their version, and that's how the film is researched over 4 years. And what is propaganda in this? It's brutal, naked truth served as it happened in 1990. How can you deny the fact that, people were butchered, they were skinned alive, they were raped, they were murdered,
You know what? Yeah, but, they're not saying that actually. Gautam Mukherjee, if you did listen to the other side of the argument very, very carefully, what I do understand is that we accept that genocide happened, but we don't want to accept that the genocide was committed by people who perhaps, were within India as well. They're not some terrorist who came from outside. What had happened had happened. It's a true description of, what had happened in 1990s. Yes, questions can be raised when it comes to the role of the politicians. Questions can be raised when you speak of the way, the so-called left liberal, again, quote unquote, cabal, a word which is very loosely used these days, has been portrayed. But just to the limited point of genocide, just to the limited point of what had happened to Kashmiri Pandit and who perpetrated the violence, why are we so reluctant to even accept it? Does it not suit the so-called modern generation? Will we become less liberal if we accept what had happened? What do you think of this, Gautam Mukherjee?
Well, 200 crores worth of people accept it. That it was genocide, plain and simple. And who did it? Well, we can be using a lot of sophistry here, distinguishing between terrorism not having a religion, making fine points on whether there were disclaimers built into the thing so that it looks like an objective viewpoint. No, any filmmaker makes a film to make an impact. If he does so, he has to have a point of view. And the point of view here clearly says that there was a widespread collusion between the government, the media, the politicians in Delhi, the politicians in ruling in Jammu and Kashmir, and a ruthless action was taken, inclusive of letting some 75 terrorists and known killers out in order to lead the pogrom. I mean, this is absolutely cannot be whitewashed. Now, the fact is, why is it happening today that we're watching the Kashmir Files and talking about it? Well, you could say, why is it that after 2014, Kashi Vishwanath got built, the Ayodhya temple is on its way to being built. All of this is part of a narrative. Certainly, there's a proud Hindu government in power. Now, this is not comfortable to some people.
No.
And they are not able to do anything about it when it comes to the elections. They keep losing elections despite being absolutely against this government. So this is the new narrative. And this film plays into that new narrative.
No, to that limited point, yes, agreed. It does, of course, coincide with the narrative which is resonating really in India. It is really the Hindutva nationalism, and there is no denying that if you look at the election results also. And yes, to the limited point of the film, not mentioning, Jagmohan, VP Singh government, all those contentious issues, one can question the film. But Major Muhammad Ali Shah, I come back to my original question, which I asked you earlier as well. Why can't we accept that there was an ethnic cleansing, a genocide of Kashmiri Pandits? You can question the film, but when you have countries like New Zealand which start to have a second thought on the film, there are voices which start calling the film Islamophobic. How does a film become Islamophobic if it's just showing you what had happened? It is showing you plain simple facts. Why is it Islamophobia today? That is the big question which we are trying to understand.
Actually, I know the filmmakers, Vivek Ranjan Agnihotri, Pallavi Joshi, very well. In fact, I worked in the previous film, the Kashmir Files. In fact, the cast, Darshan Kumar, who played the lead in this, is a very, very old dear friend of mine. We go back to our theatre years before I joined the army from that time.
Okay.
And none of them are actually Muslim haters or they believe in propaganda. They are very, very nice, hospitable people. Each time I have visited them, they have always treated me with a hot cup of tea, and I was well aware of this time when he was making the Kashmir Files. In fact, I was to work with them at that time. Well, let me tell you one thing.
Okay.
It is not that people are really not accepting it as propaganda. No, it's not about that. It's about, as Mr. Raghvendra rightly said, he hasn't seen the film, but he is talking in general in perspective of any person who has not seen the film, the way a film is projected. And it is about, as I said, that I'm a Muslim. But I believe that religion has no terror because I wrote an open letter also to Jaish-e-Mohammed, the terrorist outfit, which was covered very widely by your channel after the Pulwama attacks. And where I rebuked the Jaish-e-Mohammed because I understand what Islam means. No religion will talk about, it isn't about people, about killing innocent people. No religion talks about that. So it would be a wrong message driven home by a certain sect which are terrorists who believed in doing a genocide. Yes, a genocide did happen, very, very unfortunate, and it was unfortunate beyond words. Their pain and what they
point taken.
Unimaginable.
Point taken. The pogrom is condemnable, but that's your limited point that we need to see those who did conduct it as terrorists and not link it with a religion. But Major General Sudhakar ji, do you buy this argument? I'm not trying to say that today we start to bash a community or to say that it was a certain community which perpetrated crimes on another. The point is, yes, today we should look at rehabilitating Kashmiri Pandits to think of their betterment, their lives as well. But at the same time, we cannot ignore history. I mean, history is the foundation, the basis of our present and our future, and we have to recognize it. And this film is only holding a mirror to the society. Would you agree with that, Major General Sudhakar?
Actually, compliments, lovely question you have asked, and couldn't have been better. Very quick points again, because time is limited. You see, this film is a product. For some, it could be your source of facts and figures. To some of us, it may be your source of entertainment. But this product has been produced after 32 years of the incident that took place. What must actually trigger in a mind is the historical perspective of Jammu and Kashmir. Where was Jammu and Kashmir, say 75 years back? What was the percentage of Hindu population at that point in time? And how has it actually declined in the percentage? That is one part. I leave it as a food for thought. But the bigger part that so far the discussion has actually taken place in a beautiful manner, but no one is actually given any kind of a pointer towards the geopolitics. Why have we forgotten to mention about Pakistan? It's our neighbor.
Okay.
He's the chief architect of all this. The existential justification, Pakistan as a nation state, and the deep state of Pakistan is based on Jammu and Kashmir. The non-state actors, these are the state organs without which the deep state cannot exist in Kashmir.
Yes.
Similarly, there are many other issues. Because of paucity of time, I would like to dwell on this, but suffice to say that we need to actually think as a nation that such a beautiful thing has come, regardless of maybe little bit of deficiency in the facts and figures, but certain things which should have been spoken about 30 years back is being spoken now. Where do we go ahead after this?
Well,
do
absolutely.
the Kashmiri Pandits go back to the Kashmir Valley, or we keep dilly-dallying on the issue and fail to play hardball on the back?
Well, absolutely, sir. And we need to look at the future. We need to think of how to rehabilitate the Kashmiri Pandits. To that limited point, of course, introspection is needed, but also we need to think on why there is a so-called agenda around a certain movie which is just trying to portray a lesson from history, the truth of what had happened in the valley in the 1990s, and why is it that a country like New Zealand, which once approves the movie, the censor board has to have a rethink on that. With that open-ended question, I leave the viewers and thank all the experts who joined us as we close the bulletin.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.